The World Baseball Classic is over. And to talk about the championship game that we just witnessed between Team Japan and Team USA and the WBC as a whole, we are live streaming out on my channel, Ballcap Sports, on Robbie's channel, Robbie Hyde. Robbie, what's going on? And Tyler Wardy NYM is here. Boys, how are you doing on this Tuesday evening?
I'm sad for USA as an American, but I mean, Japan, what a story. Undefeated throughout this entire tourney. You couldn't match it up better with Shohei striking out Trout. Won't be the last time he does that either. I'm sorry, Angels fans. Just an absolutely phenomenal tournament, and I enjoyed every second of it. And this is even a Mets fan saying this after losing my all-star closer in Diaz for the year. So all things considered, a phenomenal tournament. I cannot get enough of this.
Yeah. Robbie?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm just going to ask you guys this. How revved up are you now for the actual Major League Baseball season? I don't think I've been this revved up for the season now in a while. Like, this is probably the best warm-up you could ever get for, Major League Baseball, man. This is amazing. We got to go to a game. That was probably the craziest game I've ever been to. Man, it's just been a really cool experience just watching all of it. And I'm glad I got to spend some time with you guys too in person at a game. So,
dude, that was a blast. No doubt about it. Like you said, I echo those sentiments. It was a great time being together. That stadium, that environment was unmatched. Many other games that I've been to, and like you said, I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at an 11 right now, juiced up for the season to start. I kind of hate that we have to wait a little bit more than a week and a couple days for the season to actually get going, because this tournament was a lot of fun. You guys, tell me if you feel the same way. I did not think I was going to like this tournament this year as much as I did. Like, this thing far exceeded my expectations. What about you guys? Tyler, what do you think?
This definitely exceeded my expectations. And going into it, like, I didn't pay attention game by game in 2017. Obviously, I focused in moments, but I wasn't really as, interested or in tune with everything that the WBC was about last time that it was transpiring. So after seeing what transpired with Team USA winning it all last time, and just all the great moments, of course, from Adam Jones with the catch, just some great matchups against Puerto Rico, among others, like, this was certainly a nice build up to this point. And I mean, from attending the game that we saw in person, I still can't get over that. Easily the best baseball atmosphere I've ever been a part of. I mean, no regular season or even playoff game that I've been to yet even sniffs when you have basically a sold out 40,000 crowd of no one on their phones, just all locked in, screaming their heads off, playing music, doing everything the entire time. I love the cultures that get involved in this. Is so different, yet again, you just appreciate baseball more. So yeah, definitely exceeded my expectations. I can't say enough good things about this tournament. And in 2026, we don't only have this, we have the World Cup going on. We have Olympics, I'm pretty sure, too. It is going to be a very patriotic year for whatever country that you'll be representing. It's going to be a blast.
One thing I want to throw in there to give anybody a feel that has not been to a WBC game, specifically the game we went to in Miami, we got there and the concourse, it was the only people that were in the concourse were the people that were trying to see over and see the field. The lines for the concessions, there were none. Nobody. When you go to a baseball game, there's lines at the concessions, not at the game we went to. That's how locked in people were. Robbie, go.
Yeah, coming in to this, I wasn't really sure what to expect, to be honest, because it had been a couple of more years since the last WBC because of, the COVID pandemic and whatnot. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. I wasn't sure what the attendance was going to be like. I wasn't sure what the ratings were going to be like. I was kind of in a wait and see mode. And wow, when you look at the numbers, it's crazy. Like, this was astronomical numbers all across the board. When you look at the ratings, here in America, in Japan, in Puerto Rico, I believe in one of the Puerto Rico games, I can't remember which one exactly, but it was like 60% of Puerto Rico was watching the game. In Japan, 48% were watching the Japan versus Italy game. Like, that is crazy. Japan's a huge country. I understand, they don't have, Major League Baseball over there. They got great baseball over there, but just the fact that many people were tuning in, kind of like Wardy, I would say my expectations were absolutely blown away, but I was more in a point of view where I just wasn't really sure what to expect. And now I believe this has now established itself as a top tier competition. I want to ask you guys, would you put this on the same pedestal as a World Series? I think that's going to be a pretty decent debate moving forward. What do you guys think?
I'll go first, Tyler. I'll let you go right after me. I think on the global scale, there is certainly an argument to be made on that element. I think here in the United States, I don't think it is yet. I think the U.S. winning it last time certainly helped it. The U.S. being back in the championship, every time the United States can be in the finals, I think that will continue to boost it. Globally, though, I don't know if anybody in Korea or Japan watches the World Series, even to a tenth of the degree that they watch the WBC. So as far as a global competition, I would say there has to be an argument for that. I would bet, though, in the States, I think it's close. It's got to be getting there. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, it's a great debate, and I think it's important, as you guys were mentioning, like the cultural differences, right? Like obviously, if you look at Americans, we of course, started baseball, and it's the nation's pastime and everything, but you can just see how different it is, how it's adopted for Japan, for example. They view this as an art. You look at the South American countries, like in the Caribbean, right? Puerto Rico, DR, like this means everything to them, and it's at a cultural level where it's hard. The excitement level is different. It's hard to explain, but we saw it firsthand. So yeah, I think the culture factor is really where it comes into play, where you're from, based on how you're feeling. I will say atmosphere wise, it's 100% a World Series atmosphere. How is it not? I mean, they proved it. I mean, the amount of sold out crowds that we saw. And again, more than anything, what really blew me away was that, especially from the game that we attended, but for many games throughout this entire tournament, was that it was nonstop just screaming and loudness. I mean, even during the World Series games, there's times where, depending on what the matchup is and, who's home, not that you can hear a pin drop, but things can get quiet. That happens in a baseball game, especially if, say, it's a home crowd and they're getting blown out early or something. So viewing it from all those perspectives, it's interesting. It's going to be a fun debate for the years to come. It's hard to compare it one-on-one with World Series rather, because I myself, as a Mets fan, never been in attendance for a World Series game or really got to hone in on it aside from their run in 2015 most recently. So that's really, I need the perspectives of fans that have been through that, like Robbie. I think that's a good example. You've been through the Red Sox runs throughout the 2000s, going into the 2010s. So how would you view that atmosphere, and that intensity? It's hard to not have your bias involved. I understand that, but still, kind of share your further thoughts on that if you can.
Yeah, see, I live in Florida, so I've mainly been to, Tropicana Field for most of the Red Sox games I've gone to. I've been to a few at Fenway, but I've seen really good games. I mean, Tropicana Field maybe is not the best example, but it got pretty loud at some of these games I went to. I went to the Kevin Kiermaier walk-off home run game last year, cried myself to sleep that night. Evan Longoria back in, 2009, hit a walk-off home run in the 14th inning. That, it's funny because those places, that crowd for those games that I went to got loud. And when we went to that game, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, it kind of just blew my mind because I had never been a part of a crowd like that. I thought I had been in loud crowds before, but not like that. And so I think that really just goes to show that how successful this event was. Because at the end of the day, we got to grow the game, and just reach out to as many different people across the world as you can. And I think this proved that this is going to be an amazing event every 4 years. So,
yeah. And luckily we only have to wait 3 for the next one. We get it on a shorter time frame. I do have a super chat from Skull TYA Catch 84. How much would the US dominate if they showed up with their best starting pitchers? Which is, a great point. I think we could all agree, right? When we talk about the product on the field from a USA standpoint, this lineup was one of the best, if not the best lineups in the WBC, but the pitching left a little to be desired. Out there today with Kyle Freeland pitching, I think about 3 innings or so. What if we had some of our elite pitchers in there? I agree with you. Skull, thank you for that donation. And I do agree that if the pitching was there, because I feel like one of the reasons why Japan won this thing is their pitching was incredible. And
so good.
you guys let me know what you think, what your thoughts are on that. But I think one of the main reasons why Japan won this thing was their pitching.
Yeah. Pitching wise, USA just weren't as deep. That was the biggest
Yeah.
concern heading into this thing from the beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
if they had every frontline starter from the States, which is a good portion of the MLB as is, it definitely would be a different question. I mean, from a Mets perspective, just the thought of both Max and JV being a part of this rotation, like them locked in, I think would have been nuts. You have, Corbin Burns, you have endless pitchers, just to name a few, right? Like, you can go through the list, of course. It definitely would have changed things. But I think you could also make, to a lesser extent, that same counter for other countries. I mean, I think it's Team Puerto Rico. What if Carlos Correa was there? Just as one name,
True.
offensively. You think of DR if Tatis was available and able to be part of that. Like, not that DR shouldn't need more offensive help when you looked at how stacked that lineup was on paper, but they clearly needed something because they really didn't perform to the caliber that we expected. And then you go so on and so forth with every country. So you can definitely have those debates with every team, but USA definitely sticks out like a sore thumb when it comes to the rotation that they worked with versus what they could have had if others decide to participate.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Make sure if you have not yet, to everybody that is watching, subscribe to Robbie's channel, subscribe to Ballcap wherever you are watching the stream. And when you're done, when you got to go, make sure before you shut down for the night, you subscribe to Wardy's channel if you have not, Wardy NYM, and hit that like to support the streams. Robbie, your thoughts on the pitching and some of the, players who were and were not there.
Yeah, no disrespect to Merrill Kelly, really solid year last year for him, but Merrill Kelly's not really the name you're looking for to go in a championship game.
Right.
It would have been nice to see a guy like Max Scherzer or Verlander or Burns that were mentioned. That was the game changer in this one. Yeah, I really think coming into this tournament, I picked Japan to win the whole thing just because I saw how elite their starting pitching was. To me, when it comes to these playoffs or, tournaments like this, pitching is going to be the huge, deciding factor. I kind of wonder moving forward because I feel like, a lot of these pitchers from other countries, they want to get their name out there. Like we saw Roki Sasaki yesterday. That was really fun to watch, but that guy is going to get a fat contract when he comes over here. So I feel like a lot of, I want to hear your thoughts on this too, both of you, where I feel like a lot of pitchers and players from other countries that are not in Major League Baseball, I feel like there's more incentive for them, to come out and, have scouts watching them.
Right.
Whereas USA pitchers, where, a lot of them, they're already getting paid pretty hefty. And, I know some of the players in here were getting paid very well too, but I feel like, I don't know if maybe that is a bit of a difference there where some of these pitchers are more, they just want to kind of focus on getting ready for their season. What are your thoughts on that?
Fair point, because you think about, Hiroto Takahashi, who was pitching in today's game, pitched the 5th inning. And on my game notes, I wrote down, these splitters are insane. 20 years old, and he's out there to showcase himself to the world. So, I mean, look at what happened with Kodai Senga last time out. That's what everybody remembered, was striking out. What did he strike out? 4 or 5 of USA hitters. So you have somebody like Takahashi and other players along those lines that are looking to make a name for themselves, whereas Corbin Burns and other players, they've already made a name for themselves. They already have big time money on the line, where, if you're Corbin Burns, you might say, what? I mean, I don't know if this is why Corbin Burns sat out or not, or didn't play, or any other USA pitcher. They might look at it like, well, is it worth it? I mean, sure, it would be fun. It'd be cool, but my career could be on the line. Look what happened with Edwin Diaz. Now, he should be back. It's fine. It's not an arm injury, but you could have a fluke thing. Look at Jose Altuve. If you're a player that held out from this thing, all you needed to sort of reinforce that decision was what happened to Jose Altuve and Edwin Diaz. But if you are Takahashi or any of these other guys that are looking to make a name for himself, you're going to take that risk. You're going to make that gamble. Tyler, what do you think?
That's a good point, which reminded me, did we find out the reasoning why Nick Martinez left Team USA?
He wasn't going to pitch anymore. Yeah, he was not slated to pitch anymore.
Gotcha.
He hates America. That's why he left.
Yeah. No, that's a great point too. I mean, there's definitely players that say they had concerns to begin with. I don't think, seeing two all-stars in their respective positions get down helps the cause for next time around. But yeah, initially from what you were saying, Robbie, how guys from other countries trying to make a statement. I mean, we saw multiple guys throughout this tournament get signed to major league contracts from this. And again, the exposure is the best thing because look, I'm not gonna lie, I don't watch the MPB constantly, so getting a chance to see these guys on this stage further excites me as a baseball fan. Make sure that I'm watching more MPB games. Like that really draws my interest. As a Mets fan with Kodai Senga, he was put on the map, especially globally last WBC, in which he did so well. But now we're seeing that, with Sasaki, who again is 21 years of age. And the guy, as soon as he's ready to be posted, it's 2027 right now. Could be sooner, however, if he has any say in that. I mean, this could be the next phenom of pitching in all baseball, without question. Touching 102 on the gun, ridiculous cutter, so much movement. I mean, he's just one example. Then you look at the other countries as well and the different benefits it brought. Cuba was really interesting. I'm sure you guys saw this, but their catching coach defected early before the tournament even ended. So you just dip the team and be like, all right, I'm staying in the States. I'm like, that's a clever way. I mean, yeah, if you're in a communist country, I mean, that's big brain thinking right there.
Don't come back.
How many times have we seen players get to the States by, having to do it via boat? I mean, a great example, of course, was the late Jose Fernandez for the Miami Marlins when he was like, I think first age of 12, taking a boat over, got caught, was sent back. He tried like 3 or 4 times before he even got here. So, there's just a lot of positive takeaways, I would say, from this tournament as a whole, from the baseball fan and from the players' perspective, and being a part of it and how it can drastically change their careers and their lives for that matter. Because at the end of the day, MLB is in the United States for a reason, and it's done so great for so many players. So if this can help out further careers, then by all means, I'm in favor for it.
Those of you that are live with us, if you haven't yet, make sure to hit that like. We'll get that like count up. It's a great way to support the streams. We're going to ask a question. We're going to ask a question to Robbie and to Tyler. I want you guys in the live streams to also answer that question. After Tyler and Robbie answer it, I'm going to go through and we'll read off some of what you guys have to say. My question is this, and Robbie, I'll have you go first. Tyler, you sort of teed me up on this.
Sure.
Pick. What do you think is the moment from this WBC, positive moment? I think we'll remember the Edwin Diaz thing for some time. What is the positive moment that you believe we will look back on next WBC and say, remember X? What is that moment? Do you have a moment that sort of stands out positive wise that we'll remember for years to come? Robbie, I'll let you go first. And again, those of you that are watching live, make sure to comment in the live chat. We will read those out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the consensus is the Trey Turner Grand Slam. Like, that was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, it was when all 4 of us, Jim, Wardy, and Mike from Stark Raving Sports, when we just simply walked into the concourse. That first step, it was almost like you stepped through like a bubble, right? And as soon as you walked into that bubble, it was just energy, like everywhere. Like, I'll always remember that. I don't know why that one specific moment sticks out to me, but it was just like, it went from almost like calm to just crazy. And it was so crazy to me. Like, just thinking back to that, it was like, I could feel it. It was weird. But moment wise, in the WBC, I mean, for me, another personal one. Hey, seeing my homeland of Great Britain in here, like, that's crazy. This is a country that's been sipping tea, eating crumpets, and playing cricket for years, and like, that's crazy. They had a lead on the U.S. at one point. It was very short lived, but the fact that you had some of these guys, coming out and playing, like, that's crazy to me. That's so cool.
Yeah.
and I mean, let's actually talk about the game here for a second. I mean, I don't know, we what was that in the NFL? Who was that player? Was it Arian Foster or something talking about scripted games or something like that?
Yeah, jokingly. Yeah.
Okay, come on, like Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout with the game on the line, like that's whatever. That could be scripted, whatever. Better. I don't even care. That was amazing. It just seeing that was so cool. Ohtani just doing his thing, man. I'd have to process it a little bit more. There's a lot of good moments, man, but I really liked, the later stages, the later rounds, that Venezuela USA game. That was incredible. I knew that was going to be a good one. And that was a treat of a game. And yeah, sure, the Turner Grand Slam, but that whole game was just so awesome, in general. Hey, how about Mexico too? The Mexico-Japan game. That was a really good one. USA Cuba was kind of in a way, a bit of a sleeper because it was a blowout. But Mexico was that close, man. And they were, I think, a pretty overlooked team coming into this. And I was really happy to see them come out and just play the way they did. There's just so many, man. I could talk for a little while about this, but Wardy, I'll let you get in.
Staying on the Mexico topic, just Randy Arozarena reaffirming how he is the baddest mofo on the planet.
Randy.
Clutch is just some mofo named Randy. Simple as that. With the bat, with the glove. To do that version of a bat flip with the stare down after the leap and the catch yesterday. You're looking back on Sandoval and them just kind of flexing on each other. Like that is exactly what I love about this sport. And I wish that we would see more of that in MLB. We still got old heads in here that say, that's wrong for the game. It's this and that. But this is what draws you eyes. This is excitement. Why not make the most of, again, Randy just made a great catch, but no, who's going out of their way to flex it like that? It's those little things that the WBC, what it exemplified most is personality from all these different cultures. That is my biggest takeaway from it. This is what separates it from normal Major League Baseball. They just don't compare whatsoever. From the fans that are attending. Look, I will say I've been in rowdy, games before. I went to the Subway Series for the Mets and Yankees last year, sold out crowd at Citi Field. I was in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, sold out crowd, same thing. Electric atmosphere. Do not get me wrong, especially because I went and saw the Subway Series game. That game, the Mets won in a walk-off hit by Sterling Marte. So, it was a great, moment and reaction live. As electric as that was, the fact that we were, again, it was Puerto Rico was down 8 or 9 runs at one point. When they got their first or second run, you thought the game was tied. If not, they were winning. Yeah. The entire country of Puerto Rico was in attendance for that game. It was just absurd. So for all those reasons, that's my biggest takeaway and moment. But if I had to narrow it down to a single player that isn't a Philadelphia Philly, the obvious and the Turners, and even Schwarber hit a couple big bombs in the series, it's got to be Randy Arozarena. He does not get nearly enough love, and unfortunately, I think that goes in hand with him playing in a smaller market, obviously in Tampa. But that man is just a human highlight reel. When hasn't he stepped up in big moments since he came into the league? Enlighten me, because I don't know. Seriously.
Randy's awesome.
Can you do me a quick favor, man? And for Randy Arozarena, I sent you a picture that I posted on Twitter yesterday. For the fans at home, can you please pull up that picture and share it? Because it is amazing. That will always be one of my favorite pictures of Randy Arozarena, just standing there after he made that catch and just cold-blooded staring. That is amazing to me. He is honestly, I can't stand Randy Arozarena as a Red Sox fan, but as a baseball fan, I just enjoy the guy a lot. He just seems like a fun dude. One other guy, listen, what else this tournament did for me as a Red Sox fan, I got to see Yoshida in this. Wow. I'm excited. It's crazy. Well, maybe not crazy, but I think a lot of people were surprised that he was actually playing in this thing, because you have Senga for the Mets, and that's first year in the major leagues, and Yoshida, same thing. And, Senga's not in the WBC. Man, there it is. Look at that. That is just
that might be
untucked and everything.
Right. I feel like that is when we're talking about like stills or captures moments, that seems like easily top 10, maybe top 5.
Didn't
Yeah.
he sign a ball that inning for a fan too? I'm almost certain.
Yeah, I think he did.
Like
I think he did.
mid game, just like
Yes,
here
he
you
did.
go.
Yes. Yeah, Randy Arozarena in this tournament, man, 6 games, 20 ABs. He had a 1507 OPS. It is not. He's nuts, man.
Nuts.
Like I remember Jared Carabas. He put out a tweet saying if he only plays in like big games, playoffs, WBC, he's basically like Barry Bonds. Like he's nuts. Like it's crazy, man. Like Arozarena, man. Like I want like his performance makes me want to just pick him for an MVP candidate just because of how good he was. I hope that translates over, into the major leagues, man. Like, just regular season. If he is that kind of a player all year, like,
Right.
watch out, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. Clutch in the postseason a couple of years ago, and we see him sort of back in that mode here in the WBC. It's one of those things where, if Tampa makes the playoffs, I mean, it's going to be a grind for them. You have to watch out for Randy. Randy's the one guy. There was a moment in yesterday's game around that catch, and it just seemed like after that the ball kept getting hit to him. Didn't it seem like he was like an NFL safety, a ball hawk? If the ball went anywhere near him, he was going to get it because he had to make a couple of other nice plays in the field. We'll go through the chat. Again, I said that we would read out some of the comments, you guys letting us know what sort of stood out to you. David, remembering Trey Turner and the 5 home runs. Trey Turner's grand slam, I think will probably, here in the States, will probably be the number one moment that we take away from it. We also had Ratchet. Got to remember how good Australia did. Australia with their with some of their guys. What was it? What was the team that they had the story about the firefighters and the doctors? Was that Australia or was that
Czech Republic? Yeah,
that was Czech Republic. So Czech Republic, you just had some amazing stories from this thing. We also had a couple more here. I'm losing track of them. There was a couple more. There's been a lot of comments since then. What's that? You got some super chats?
Yeah, I don't know if you see them on your end.
I do not. What do you got?
So yeah, I had a couple here. One from Michael Yench. He says here a $5 super chat from Michael Yench. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you. I was wrong about USA winning the WBC, but still excited for opening day. Well, let's talk about that one real quick. Do you think USA here? Do you feel? I mean, I know we kind of talked about their pitching a little earlier, but do you feel like? I don't know. Would you call this a bit of I guess, a choke from USA? Like, because they had a lot of momentum coming into this. Like, how do you feel about USA just this whole tournament?
I would say no, just because of how good Japan's pitching was. Japan had some good bats. You got to be excited about Yoshi. That's another one of those moments is Yoshida, the home run yesterday. So Japan.
Yeah, Murakami too.
Yep, Japan had bats. They had better pitching. I wouldn't put this on a choke. I mean, it was 3-2. They were up with a chance in the 8th and in the 9th. And they were going to get Shohei Ohtani in the 9th. I can't put this as a choke. If anybody choked, and I don't even know if this is fair, but I thought the Dominican Republic. I mean, the DR didn't even get out. They did not get out of pool play.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Ridiculous.
Yep. Tyler, what do you think? What do you think about that? The thought of USA choking it all.
I didn't think USA choked. They looked underwhelming to start. That was for sure. With the tournament as a whole. I mean, seeing them get blown, like the way that they lost to Mexico really took me back. I'm like, oh wow. Okay, Mexico's better than we initially expected. And I didn't do a complete deep dive of the roster, but even when you looked at the roster, it still didn't lead you to believe that, like, oh my goodness gracious, like they were going to go out and be they weren't far off from obviously getting all the way to the finals here. That's how close it was with Japan yesterday.
Right.
But yeah, I would say USA, they were slightly underwhelming. Some guys weren't as effective as I expected them to be. Felt like USA was just pressing a lot of this, like especially in their big moments. Like they were very hit or miss. And
Mhm.
some games where you'd expect that they would be grinding out at bats better.
Yeah.
That was my biggest takeaway for them. DR just completely blew. DR, I think, unfortunately, we're in a situation where they just couldn't get things going
Yeah.
because I think they might have been a little too loose, a little too confident, a little bit
Mhm.
too big of an ego heading into that. I mean, when
Yeah.
you're already deemed as the favorite heading into this thing, I mean, when we saw that potential lineup go out a couple months ago, we were like, "Holy guacamole!" Like,
Yeah.
there's no how
No
do they
shot.
not at minimum get
Mhm.
to the championship round, right?
Mhm.
And then here they are, just silent, just could not get the bats going. So
Yeah.
it's a learning experience. A lot of young players on that team too. A lot of their stars, Julio, even, Soto, I know he's been to the dance, but these are still younger guys that,
Yeah.
I think 2026, they will be much better than what they were. But one thing that I do want to highlight here, just from a player performance overall, was Murakami heading into this was deemed as he was going to be the face of Japan along with Otani.
Mhm.
From an offensive side of things. I mean,
Mhm.
the guy literally just MVP the past couple of years in the MPB. He's only 22, 23 years of age. Hit
Yeah.
over 50 bombs in the MPB last year.
Right.
Expected to be posted in a couple of years. Absolutely machine offensively. And he had the worst stretch of his baseball career in this tournament. And I was texting yesterday on the side with my buddies. I'm like, I'm waiting for Murakami to show up. And he showed up when it mattered most to get the
Today.
game-winning RBI yesterday. He showed up again today with the
Mhm.
bomb.
Mhm.
So he's another name that I'm just ecstatic to see once he hits the bigs in a couple of years. That's going to be a crazy offseason if it's 2025 offseason, if it's around that time, because we'll potentially have Soto if he's not, say, extended, some other big names too. So
Right.
I know Yankees fans think they have him on lock already because he apparently has said vocally that he wants to be a Yankee, grew up a Yankee fan. So we'll see when that time comes. But yeah, I was happy to see him step up because he had an underwhelming tournament up until the past couple of games when I mattered most.
Yeah, I got to add to that. I actually, as I was tweeting, as he was having that at bat against Mexico, and I put out like he's due, and then literally like I don't even think it was 20 seconds, and he hit the walk off. It's like he's so good. Like when you saw how he did tonight, he just, man, that guy can just hit bombs. It's crazy. I'm glad he came alive when it mattered most. I definitely think that helped him out. He was, getting on base a little bit in this tournament, but like I said, like you said, he, huge season last year. He just didn't quite live up to those kind of numbers. But and it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I'm glad a lot of these guys are getting the opportunity to, showcase their stuff. So
Mhm. Keep hitting
Yeah.
that like, everybody. If you have not yet, hit that like and subscribe to the channels. If you are watching and have not subbed yet, Robbie, did you have? I think you mentioned. Did you have another super chat in there, or did you get them all?
yes, I want to get that in just 1 second. I actually have a
Go ahead.
question to ask you guys before I get to that super chat, because
Sure.
knowing me, my potato brain, I'll forget. But speaking of like how Murakami, a little disappointing throughout the whole tournament, from your respective teams, Blue Jays and the Mets, who is one guy that you were happy to see go back to camp? Do you guys have a player on your minds?
There's really, as far as the Toronto squad is, like, there was nobody. There was no real strong, prominent presence in the WBC. Like, we see Phillies players everywhere. We see some Red Sox players. We see Cardinals players. Toronto really did not have a whole lot. Otto Lopez was playing, but Vladdy got hurt and right before he would have
Mhm.
gone to report, so there was no Guerrero for Dominican Republic. And Bo stayed back, and Kirk also got had a child, I believe it was,
That's
so he
right.
did not
Yeah.
show up. So a lot of the Jays representatives didn't make it. So I guess there is no real answer from that perspective on the Blue Jays front. Anyway, Tyler,
Is
anything
there
for the
anyone
Mets?
on the Mets? I'm trying to remember. Oh,
I was
yeah.
as much as I loved watching Lindor for Puerto Rico when we saw him in person, he
Yeah.
was great too. I mean,
Yeah.
my biggest takeaway was that Lindor, him stepping up in like every game he played for the most part. Great to see him do that on a big stage. It's reassuring for me as a fan where when it comes to hopefully postseason time this year, he's a guy that the Mets can bank on. But
Mhm.
especially when Diaz was down, I'm like, all right, get your ass back over here. So that,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I was rooting for PR. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it was like I still cannot wait for Lindor to return, and it wasn't long after. So yeah, has to be Francisco, and I'll even say another thing. Because Alonzo and McNeil weren't playing every day too, so I wasn't too worried about them with Team USA. It wasn't like they were getting consistent reps the way that Lindor was. But there's actually one guy for the Mets that I was hoping drag out as long as he could on Venezuela, and
Oh, I
that's
know. Yeah, I
Eduardo
know.
Escobar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
Eddie, love him to death, phenomenal personality. But I wanted Brett Beatty get as many reps as possible this spring when he was
Mhm.
gone. Beatty did, and now Escobar publicly said that he doesn't even know if he has the job secured. So that I'm happy that that transpired because Brett Beatty, for those that don't know, is one of the Mets' top prospects, third base prospect. Has been balling out this spring, and we
Yep.
expect him to hopefully start the year on the roster. And if it wasn't for Escobar being a part of this, there's a possibility that Beatty doesn't impress the way that he does. He wouldn't have gone nearly as many reps. So everything happens for a reason. But yeah, Eddie, I mean, if there was anything I was rooting for Venezuela to get all the way there, he was a part of it. I'm not gonna lie.
Keep it going. Yeah.
Biasly speaking. Yes.
No, I knew you were going to go there. I 100% knew you were going to go there. Brett looked great, and
He's cooking.
I drafted him in my. I'm doing 2 fantasy baseball leagues this year, and I did it. One of the drafts was last night. I drafted Brett Beatty. He's my
Nice.
starting. He's my starting third baseman on my fantasy baseball team because I'm that confident he's going to play that much and have that much of a significant contribution to
Oh, man,
the Mets.
now that you're bringing that up, I mean, I'm just saying here, guys. I mean, I think we got to do a live fantasy baseball draft. I mean, come on.
We have to move quick on that. We'll have to move quick on
We
that.
do
with
have
the
to move
season.
quick on
The
that.
season.
Maybe we can set something up in the next week or so. But for
Okay.
me,
I'll be down.
Devers was pressing so much
Mm.
in this tournament early on, and I was watching some, he was like popping out on some of these pitches that he would just hit tanks on last year. I'm like, oh my God, please get this guy back to camp. Like,
Yeah.
please, even if the DR advanced, I was like, please just send him home. Like, I need him to go back to camp. Even Verdugo too. Verdugo did have a clutch hit for Mexico yesterday, but he wasn't really looking all that great in the tournament overall.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was, nice to see. I was glad, I wanted Yoshida to stay out there as long as possible. Because he's fun to watch, man. I'm very excited for him. But real quick, let me just get this super chat. It was from SoundFX09, longtime supporter of the channel, big Braves fan. He says here, honestly, this WBC was everything I could have asked for. Sucks the U.S. came up short, but I expected nothing less than a straight-up duel. Congrats, Japan. You deserve to reclaim the baseball crown. Yeah, third World Baseball Classic, man. Like, they are just I mean, man,
Good.
you got to think of the early favorites for the next one, too.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think it'll be the same, the similar suspects, if you will, right? I think we'll have Japan back, USA back, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Mexico. If you want to call it the Elite Eight, I would bet that we could predict 7 of the 8 final 8 teams. The teams to get out of pool play next time around. It's just the talent level. When we start looking at some of these other teams, that it's fun to see Team Canada and Great Britain and Australia and Israel and Czech Republic. It's fun to watch them play in pool rounds, and maybe they'll get a win and look good. But at the end of the day, when we start to get to, you got to stack up wins in the pool, you got to score runs, and we kind of know who's going to be there. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's going to be incredible when it comes back in 3 years. Let me get let's go around the room. Any final thoughts? We'll wind the stream down. We've been going for about 40 minutes here. I think that's about what we were thinking. Don't go anywhere. We're going to give you some final thoughts Tyler, why don't you go first with your final thoughts on WBC 2023?
Yeah, I'm just grateful it happened. Again, I know it might be hard for a Mets fan like me to say, but I
Yeah.
have to view things big picture, right? Injuries inevitably happen.
Hmm.
I'm not going to view this as a situation where, oh my goodness, there's no chance in hell Diaz could have gotten hurt if he didn't partake in WBC, especially in the manner they got hurt. I mean, that felt like his knee felt like a ticking time bomb. I mean, with
Might have
how that
been.
painful were. It was a
Yep.
rare thing to happen to a baseball player. So I'm not going to go on that tangent. I will say that I don't love the timing of the year for it, but I understand why it probably isn't going to change when it comes to other countries and when their leagues start. I definitely think that there's an argument to be had about guys ramping up to basically a World Series esque atmosphere in March. That definitely, is noted as to the potential increase in injuries, but just this entire experience from being in attendance with you guys to watching at home still, it's definitely something that I'm going to cherish for a long time as a diehard sports and baseball fan. I think anyone that truly appreciates the game knows just how great this type of tournament is, and I hope that it opened eyes for a lot more people. And for 2026, I hope that there's even more excitement, especially with for us Americans for Team USA. There were some points where, little underwhelmed at times, when they played Venezuela. I heard from Giraffe Neck Mark and others that not that there weren't, USA fans there, but I mean, it was the equivalent for how Puerto Rico, Venezuela for us was, where it's like the
Mhm.
70% of the stadium were Puerto Rican fans and like 30% were Venezuelan. That's kind of how it was when they played Venezuela. So I hope that there are more Americans that hop on this wave because it's just pure excitement.
Yeah.
We don't need to just view baseball as like, this lawn summer sport that's great and all, but people just enjoy like relaxing in part. Like I like the excitement. I love the intensity. And I'm just really looking forward to it coming in 3 years. I'm glad that's not going to be another 6 years or whatever,
Right.
however long it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Robbie?
Yeah, no, great takes there. I agree. I almost kind of, the way all these fans were at the stadiums just going absolutely crazy. I look at it as almost like a challenge to U.S. fans. Let's start getting a little more lively. Now that we're, getting some more things like the pitch clock, slightly bigger bases, hopefully it keeps people a little bit more engaged and we
Right.
start getting some more energy, in some of in the States, because there's obviously amazing baseball here. It's Major League Baseball. It's the best baseball on the planet. So yeah, I look at that. I want more of that energy in Major League Baseball. Not saying there's not, but I think, like you were saying earlier, Puerto Rico's up or not, Puerto Rico or Venezuela's up 9-2. Puerto Rico gets a walk and the place is going nuts. And it's like, man, you don't get that in the States. At least we haven't. So I want more energy. And it was just really cool to see. And it really opened my eyes because I didn't think, I've seen many baseball games like you guys have too. I've never seen that energy before. That was just the coolest thing to me. It's still like, people ask me, what's your favorite baseball memory? Like that game is right up there, like
Yeah.
as an in-person moment. But one more thing just to add, I'm very grateful for this World Baseball Classic. We have channels that are, slowly growing and, there is an audience out there in other countries. Like I'm looking at, analytics right now, Canada, Mexico, Japan, Dominican Republic. I have a slight audience in different countries. So I'm very grateful for the growth of the game. Get this out there and hopefully you start seeing, more people even jump in the YouTube world, checking us out, and checking out Foolish Baseball and Giraffe Neck Mark and Fuzzy and all these other channels out there. Sorry if I missed anyone, but I think it's just great for the growth of the game. And I couldn't be more excited because I feel like if when you look at baseball, what Major League Baseball is trying to do, they're trying to get the common person more engaged into the game. So I'm guessing what I'm trying to say is I'm just very excited for the growth of the game. I think huge win for Major League Baseball and just the game of baseball in general.
I agree. I think this was a very big win for Major League Baseball. There were some, I think that the positives certainly overtake some of the negatives that are out there. I think that you've got these communities of baseball fans that are growing and they're excited about the game. And like you're talking about, Robbie, just that growth. We want that growth to continue. I did write down in some of my notes before we start here. Guys, this is the last baseball game that we will watch. I'm not sure how it works out with the NPB and Japanese baseball and anything else where there is no pitch clock. This is it. This is the final non-pitch clock game that we're going to be watching. This is the final limited pickoffs. This is the final, bases. We move on now to new baseball, the way it's going to look moving forward. This was our last glimpse into that old format of Major League Baseball.
I'm glad you brought this up because I don't know if you guys saw earlier, Manfred made an announcement that he's going to be speaking the next couple days about these rule changes and that there's going to be tweaks to them. There's going to be some updates because obviously not everyone's satisfied. I can tell you personally from speaking to players and speaking to people in connection with players in specific organizations, if you can get an idea. There are a lot of pitchers, especially that absolutely despise this pitch clock.
Yeah.
They are concerned for a huge jump in injuries this year. And there's only one guy that I know for certain loves and feasts off of it, and that's because he's an alien, is Max Scherzer.
Right.
He's the only exception that I've heard is loving this. And aside from that, I'm hearing a lot of complaints. So I'd expect this to be quite the season when it comes to that front, especially.
Yeah, I could see them if there were any tweaks. I mean, look, what would be the difference if it was, I don't know, 18 seconds? If they add 3 to 5 seconds onto the 15-second, and then on the 22nd they add 5 more seconds. Like, what if you added 3 to 5 more seconds? Would that make a difference for the pitcher and not have any negative impact? We'll see what those tweaks are. I would be interested. I don't know if any of you guys have seen. I have not. Have we seen this spring training? Someone's got to have this. Maybe it's just not ready yet because spring training isn't over. But more or fewer injuries from a pitching perspective? I'd be fascinated as we kind of go through and wrap up spring training if we hear any reports of more or less arm injuries, obliques. I know we're having them. We're getting obliques. That's par for the course. We've been dealing with that for years. I'm wondering if we're seeing more, the same, or any less. Be interested to see. That'll probably come out at some point if it's not already out. But anyway,
real quick, one more super chat.
Yeah, fire away.
Wanted to get in before, just in case if I forgot it. And this is a question for all of us. So Athletics 510, he says, if you could make any changes to the WBC, what would it be?
That's a very interesting question.
I'll answer first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think, Wardy, you brought this up earlier. Maybe the timing, maybe when you do it, it's just tricky, because it's like end of the season, how much do players really want to do it at that point? They're definitely, in full swing with their routines and rhythms, obviously by that point, but it's a long season. So I don't know. Could you do it halfway through the season? I don't know. It just gets really tricky. I feel like if you were to pick the best time, it would be during this time, but I don't know. It's that's the only thing I can really think of, and I'm also curious too, when it comes to the next World Baseball Classic, are they going to have, the pitch timer? Because I know that's a Major League Baseball exclusive. Are there going to be certain rules implemented, to maybe like the pitch clock to kind of speed it up a little bit? Right now, I would think if there is anything maybe to talk about, it's the timing. But I'd like to hear what you guys think.
Tyler, do you have one?
Yeah, timing. What's interesting about if they did it mid-season, that would be sick. I would take that over the All-Star break every day of the week.
Right.
It's not even close. One's in a completely other spectrum from the other. However, this is where you get even into worse debates. What if you do that? I get the guys are fresh. It's mid-season form. So it's like perfect timing, but still, if any big stars go down
Yeah.
before, say, a second half stretch,
Yeah.
you're going to face those same criticisms.
Yeah.
So I really don't know from the criticism aspect, I don't know how much that is going to change. And if anything, it might infuriate more fans that were, devoted all first half of the season, then find out that they're star players after the second half, and that could be a detriment to them making postseason, for
Yeah.
example. I don't know if it's the right way to say, but it's like I'm as heartbroken as I am about Diaz. I'm glad that I know that he's out for the year now, versus if God forbid it would happen at any point during the season. Is
Yeah.
that longer timeline for him to return? And at least the Mets have an expectation to go into the year with how to try to tackle this without him. Trying
Yeah.
to do things on the fly is not nearly as easy as at least having a couple weeks, upwards of a month before the opening day.
I
Right.
thought,
So
yeah, I thought about the midseason thing too, and just while you were talking, what came to mind is that if you did that, you'd have to start the season. You'd have to start the season like 2 weeks early, and then you'd have to extend it 2 weeks later on the back end, right? Because this is a 2-3 week, this is a 2.5 week. So maybe you'd only have to add a week and a half, but that could throw things off because then you're firing off games across the country, and we already are going to have some weather issues as it is. The nice thing about the WBC is they park up. It's Arizona, it's Florida. You don't have to worry about any weather concerns. But a mid-season thing, sort of NHL does that for the Olympics, right? They pause the season for the Olympics, and that's really cool. I think that would be interesting if they could find a way to make that work in
that's a
season.
good
But
point. I forgot. Yep.
yeah,
They most certainly do that. And
the,
and it is entertaining when they do that, but
mhm,
the same thing applies. Injuries do happen. I've
yeah,
seen them happen from that. And naturally, you're still going to have your fair share of fans upset. So you're never
yeah,
going to appeal the masses with this. It's just kind of like trying to find that middle, if that's at all
right.
possible.
Yeah, it's difficult. I do think right now is from a logistic standpoint, right now is probably the best. I think at the end of the season, you would have players bowing out. I mean, look at what happens with the Pro Bowl. I mean, I guess you have to go back because the Pro Bowl is an absolute shit show right now. But the way it used to be, you had players bailing because they were either hurt or they were tired. They were coming up with reasons why I'm not going to go there, and then you had poor participation. I think the participation could be even harder if you tried to do it after the season. Um, Doing it now, and plus you would throw off, like, Major League Baseball needs that time, like that whole free agency stuff, like that's a big time in the calendar. So having it now is from a logistics standpoint, I think probably the best time to do it. As far as any changes, I'm having a tough time coming up with anything. The only thing I would recommend is let's see what rule changes that MLB is instituting. Let's see what works really well. And maybe some of that can get worked into the WBC. I did see, Robbie, I think you commented about it. You, KF, Jared talked about a 3-game finals, and KFC would lose his mind if that happened.
Oh, yeah.
Just flipping out.
Yeah, that would just be it. That is kind of interesting, but at the same time, in Major League Baseball, the single game winner take all is something we don't have, right? It's in the NFL, right? That's how they run their whole postseason. College basketball, it's the way the NCAA tournament runs. This is Major League Baseball's one chance to have a champion crowned with one game. And while a 3-game series, maybe you would get the better team because you would have 3 games to figure that out. I still think I like the single game element to it because it's our only single game winner take all thing that we have in Major League Baseball.
I do have maybe one idea. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not very good at ideas. I'm not the most creative person. What if maybe you did maybe the group stages before the season, and then you did the knockout stages at the All-Star break? That
that'd
way
be very interesting.
maybe you could
That would be cool.
You could give more time. So obviously, the knockout stages are taking up time too. Maybe these players can stay at spring training for a bit longer.
Right.
And then you can just push it up a little bit. So do the group rounds. You get an extra couple of weeks at spring training, get a little more prepared.
Yeah.
Then go play in the group rounds. Do that. And then All-Star break time, you can, do whatever, a week or whatever it is, the 2 weeks or what, how long did the knockout stages take? Was it like about a week, I would say? I
Yeah,
don't
I think
know,
it was
but
only about a week. I think so.
maybe you can just do that,
Yeah.
and it would be kind of weird to split it up like that. But, I'm just thinking more about getting players a little bit more ready and in their routines. So that's maybe one option I could think of. I don't know. So
You could have what would be interesting to that. One thing I thought would be kind of interesting, and I don't think you can do it, but like as you advance, you get to expand your roster, and then you have guys that, as you're going to advance, you unlock them. Now I'm getting like video game things, rules here, where like the U.S. advances to the finals. This is almost like Showdown in MLB The Show, where they win their game, so they unlock Max Scherzer, and Max Scherzer is available to come in and pitch. That was one thing that kind of was interesting to me. That thought came up because one thing that could happen with your idea, Robbie, is you would have your roster for the pool play. And then when you get to the knockout, maybe you do have to add a couple of guys in, because when you get to that point, maybe a pitcher's not available because he started the last game before you went to the WBC, or somebody gets hurt or isn't right and isn't able to play. So you have to sort of add guys to the roster, which could actually be kind of interesting if done the right way, where you get some replacements, and maybe maybe you could spin that into it. A lot of times when you do that, you kind of regress with the talent of what you're coming in with, but maybe you could find a way to do it where you at least keep it level or get a better player.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea.
One last thing I'll say, it's a two-parter, and it both has to do with Team Cuba. One, next time around, if it's, I don't know what the locations are next year. If it's in Miami again, Team Cuba needs to be in a pool that starts in Miami. I thought it was asinine that they were playing in Taiwan up until their one game in Miami against USA. I mean, that's literally their backyard. Regardless on how talented or lack thereof that team is, that they have to be there. I'm like, what was it? Wasn't team? I'm trying to think. Was it Team Israel wasn't in that pool. Nicaragua, I know, was in that pool. But yeah, Cuba has to be there. Like that was just a little thing that bothered me. And secondly, and I know, and I'm curious how much politics are involved, because as we know, the state of Cuba, you had a lot of people protesting outside the stadium when they were in Miami for USA. And again, all power to them for doing that. So I wonder how many Cuban players were offered to be part of this that are in the MLB and denied it because they don't want to represent Cuba. I genuinely don't know, but there are a lot of very good Cuban baseball players in the MLB today. And you saw the roster; it was very underwhelming. Besides Yoan Moncada and Luis Robert, I mean, Yoenis Cespedes ain't gonna do it for you. Let's be real here. So, yeah, that's a team that if they're willing to represent more for 2026, I would like to see more of that, because there is plenty of talent. But again, if they're doing like their own protests because they don't want to support Cuba, then by all means, they can do their thing. I don't know what's going on that front. Just something that popped in my mind when evaluating them throughout the tournament.
Right. All right. I think we've been going for an hour. We went an extra 20 minutes there. That's great.
Wow.
Let's wind it down, everybody. We do appreciate you coming in and spending some time. Again, be sure to hit that like. Make sure to subscribe to all 3 channels. I have a feeling as the year goes on, this probably won't be the only time all 3 of us get together to chop it up and talk baseball. So make sure to subscribe to all 3 channels so you know what's going on and you're able to find your way back easier. Hit those alerts too. Just do yourself a favor. Turn the alerts on. That's going to do it. Robbie, Tyler, thank you for coming on and joining, getting all this whole thing going. This was a lot of fun. And I guess until next WBC, it's a wrap for 2023, boys. Everybody, again, hit that like on the way out, subscribe, support the channel, support the streams, and we will catch you at a live stream at a later date. Guys,
See you guys in 2026.
that's right.
See you then.
Later, guys.